Anne with an E, Judy rather than Jerusha, Joe over Josephine. These are the names of my childhood heroines, and I often aspired to be like them. And I wondered, how can I be unique? How can I do things that no one has done before? How can I take the path less traveled? As a child, my favorite hobby was to read storybooks. During the summer holidays, I loved nothing more than to lie on my bed with my feet stuck to the wall as a cooling mechanism, of course, and to spend hours on hours reading books that I couldn't put down. Our parents instilled a love of reading in my sister and I since an early age. Our books were our greatest earthly possessions. We're privileged to have so many great books and slowly started to build our home library. Our parents went as far as getting us our own home library stamps. At the age of 13, when my family decided to immigrate to Canada, we sold and donated all of our belongings, except for our books. All 1,328 books got placed into boxes and shipped across the Atlantic Ocean. Out of those books, my favorites were Anne of Green Gables, Little Women, Daddy Longlegs. I never gave that too much thought until about a year ago when someone asked me what my favorite books were. And I realized that all of those books had one thing in common. Their main character, girls and women, heroines like no other. They were not like the rest. They had great imagination, they were brave and resilient, they took the path less traveled. Heck, they even bulldozed paths that didn't even exist before. And I often aspired to be like them. I wanted to be smart, competitive, unique, and I wanted to do things that most others wouldn't even dare dream of. And maybe that's why I had such a fascination with outer space. So much of it was unknown, untouched, ready to be explored for the very first time. And as I grew older, my love for space and exploration landed me in a field that was dominated by people that looked nothing like me. Throughout most of my undergraduate studies in space sciences, I was often the only woman in my upper year classes. And I'm not gonna lie, it made me feel special, I felt unique, I shrugged off a lot of comments, even laughed at some of them. Comments like, of course you would have the pink laptop. Or, you don't need to learn programming, just sit with any guy, they would love to help you. I never realized that any of that bothered me. Even as I was the only woman graduating from my program, all I was focused on was what other unknowns I could explore next. When I started my master's program, I was the only woman in our lab and one of the very few in the department. Now, the comments continued, slowly but steadily. Are you really gonna work in the lab with those nails? Oh, cookies. You know there's a woman in the lab when there are cookies for every occasion. Or every opportunity I got robbed off of because it was taken away from me and given to a man. Something finally started to click in my head. Being the only woman, or one of the very few in the program, started to really bother me. So I reached out to one of the very few female faculties that we had, letting her know how much being the only woman bothered me. And she shrugged her shoulders and said, it doesn't bother me. Those of us that want to be here and work hard are here. We don't need the rest. Well, I carried on. One of my breaking points, and a comment that haunts me to this day, is when I asked my master's supervisor for some advice. I asked him if I should go into industry or continue my graduate studies and do a PhD after graduation. His question in response to mine was, how old are you now? How old are you going to be by the time you're done your PhD? If you want a family and kids, maybe you shouldn't do a PhD. Meanwhile, accelerating his male master's student into a direct PhD program. And when that happened to me, I didn't have anyone to turn to. I didn't know of any female mentors in my field. I thought it was a battle that I had to fight alone. And all I knew was that I wanted to be unique. I wanted to keep exploring the unknown. And I wanted to beat the statistics. So I didn't take his advice. I went on to do my PhD. But every one of my academic achievements came with some challenges. As I was busy trying to figure out how often the moon and the earth have been getting bombarded by meteorites and asteroids, or trying to figure out the best locations on the moon for the next human missions, I had to fight battles that had nothing to do with them. I had to fight battles because of my gender. And when I got a really prestigious internship, but was denied to step foot on NASA Johnson Space Center with the other interns because of my place of birth, or as they put it, because I was a citizen of a country that supports terrorism, I had to face another battle, this time not because of my gender, but because of my race. And once again, there weren't too many folks that I could turn to because none had similar experiences, because I didn't know about them, and because I thought it was just my own problems that I had to deal with. Just a few months ago, I defended my PhD. Thank you. I defended my PhD, and I look back at my academic achievements and my academic life. I wasn't that spectacular or unique. I'm not a PI of a planetary mission. I don't have 30+ first authored papers. I didn't win any major awards or medals. I didn't get offered a faculty position right after graduation. I didn't even land a prestigious postdoc. But then I look closer and see that I got to work at the European Space Agency. I got a really cool internship to plan routes on the moon for the next human missions. I made scientific discoveries that are landing me in the top scientific journals. And I did all of that while battling so many invisible battles. Sexism, racism, and what I've recently learned about, microaggressions, death by 1,000 cuts, the slow but steady stream of comments that ate at me little by little. And I wonder how much more I could have achieved if I didn't have to spend half of my time defending the fact that I belong where I am. Now, the best or worst part of it all is that since I started talking about these challenges more openly, I've realized that they aren't unique to me. I found that other people, mostly from marginalized and racialized groups, have had similar experiences. And that has helped me find my allies and my support network. Now, every ounce of my body still itches to explore. And every hair on my body still rises when I see new images from celestial bodies for the very first time. Japan has a new mission called Hayabusa 2 to asteroid Ryugu. NASA has a new mission, OSIRIS-REx, carrying a Canadian instrument to asteroid Bennu. These spacecrafts have traveled for a couple of years for hundreds of thousands of kilometers to get to their destination. These asteroids are blurry little pebbles at first. But as the spacecrafts get closer and closer, they reveal every curve, every crevice, and every rock on the surface of these bodies. And we all get to see things that no one has ever seen before. And we get to explore things for the very first time. Every time I see new images from these celestial bodies, I'm reminded that there's hundreds of people behind every single one of these missions, working together to explore new things. Now, I'd like to think that just like my childhood heroines, I've been on the path less traveled, and I've had my share of unique experiences. But what I've realized is that those novels only cover one or a few chapters of these women's lives, and my life's novel doesn't end in a few chapters. And if I want to keep traveling in the black void of space with Hayabusa and OSIRIS-REx to keep exploring the unknown, I need a team of experts. Uniqueness, exploring the unknown, bulldozing paths never existed before, they don't happen in a void. They happen in a space with a rainbow of people. Thank you.